All right, so here's the problem I had for this morning. So first things, you can do this two ways, or even more, but the first way that I would do is I would distribute this to this and this to this. So that means I'm going to take a zero point 0.7 times a zero point 0.2. So that's going to give me a 14. I move it one, two decimal places. So that would go here, move two, and it's going to be a negative. So that gives me a negative 0.14x. Now I'm going to take 5.48 times a zero point 0.7, and so that's going to give me 56. That's going to be giving me 28, and then that's going to be at 29, 30, 31, 32, 33. That's 35, 36, 37, 38. And so move it over one, two, three decimals. So that gives me 3.836. And that's going to be a plus times a minus, so that's also going to be minus. And that's equal to 16.45. All right, so now what do I need to do? Well, now I need to isolate the x, so let's add 3.836 to both sides. So this cancels this. We get a negative 0.14x equals, and over here, if we add that, that's 6, that's going to be 8, that's going to be a 12, that's going to be a point, that's going to be a 10, and that's going to be a 2. Okay. And now I solve for x by dividing by a negative 0.14. Divide that by the 0.14. And I'm just going to put the negative out front. So I know if I divide by negative, I can put on the top, the bottom, or out in front. And because then I can say I'm just dividing two positive numbers and making the whole sign negative. Now I can't divide by a negative. I can't divide by a decimal. So I have to move the decimal two places this way. So if I do a 2 here, I have to move 2 here. And so that means I'm going to take 14 into 2028.6. Okay. So now when I do that, I'm going to get, well, 14 goes into 21. That's 14. Subtract, that's going to be 6. Bring down the 2. 14 goes into 6, maybe 4 times. That's 16. That's 56. So that's a 4. So that's a 56. That's a 6. Bring down the 8. That's not any bigger, so that's going to be another 4. So that's going to be 56. That's going to be a 1, a 2. Now I bring down the 6. And 14 times 9 is going to be a 36. 9 plus 3 is 12. So that's going to be, now I'll put my point there, and 9. And that's 126. 0 after I subtract it. And so that should be my answer, negative 144.9. Okay. Now, the other way I could have done it is if I would say if I had a negative 0.7 times 0.2x plus 5.48 equals 16.45, I could first off divide both sides by a negative 0.7. Now that's going to cancel that, so that's just 1. So I get a 0.2x plus 5.48 equals, and now I'm going to have a negative, and I'm going to divide that one. So when I do that, I have to remember I can't divide those decimals, so move over one here. So I'm going to move over one here, and so my answer is here. So now I'm going to have some extra space like that. So I can take 7 into 164.5. So 7 goes into 16 twice. That's 14. Subtract that. That's 24. That'll go in 3 times. That'll be 21. Subtract that. That's 3. Bring down a 5. That'll be a 5. So then that's equal to a negative 23.5. Now I need to isolate the x, so I subtract 5.48, subtract 5.48. And so now I get those cancel, and I get a 0.2x equals. And when I do that, I'm basically adding here. So it's going to be a negative plus a negative, so it's going to be a negative. And so then I'm going to have an 8, a 9, a point, an 8, and that's going to be a 2. Okay. Now I divide both sides by a 0.2. And so my x is going to be equal to a negative because I have a negative divided by a positive. And remember, I have to move the decimal over one here. And I have to move it over one here. So now I'm just taking 2 goes into 289.8. Well, that goes in 1. That's a 2. Subtract that. That's 0. Bring down the 8. That goes in 4. That's 8. Subtract that. That's 0. Bring down the 9. That goes in there 4. So that's going to be 8. Subtract that. That's a 1. Bring down the 8. 2 goes into 18.9, and that's 18. Subtract that. That gives me 0. A little not enough room, but that's okay. I still get 144.9. So either way you do it, you're going to get the same answer. I saw some people multiplying by 100, and they weren't quite doing that right. But if you multiply by 100, you'd have to multiply this by 100 and this by 100. And then you would have negative 70, and here you'd have 1645. But you're going to still have decimals in here. And so then you'd have to multiply still with those, or you could divide that out and get a number here, and then see what decimals are left over, and you might have to multiply everything by 100 again. But I think either the first method I showed you here, this one, or this one here is going to be one of the two main ways to do it. So I hope that helps.